What's up, everybody? It's JP. Halloween right around the corner. How you like my costume?
Okay, what costume you got going on? Is it a marshmallow costume?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I love it. I love it. So for me, I'm not thinking about Halloween. I'm thinking about the Michigan State game, which is tomorrow. So gotta represent with the go blue. You know what time it is.
Got my Michigan shirt set up in my closet, getting ready to put it on to watch the game. Uh,
Sounds good. Sounds good.
and I know we both know who's gonna win it that night.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Go blue. Well, welcome everybody here to the JP show. Got my man JP here, my son. I'm
So
Jason Phelps, and we're talking all about basketball topics. Just to remind y'all, thanks for tuning in to the last episode, and glad to have y'all here on this one. So JP, I mean, we don't do a lot of prep work for this show. We kind of just
nope.
talk off the top of our heads and kind of let it go there. So I know that you wanted to talk some about the current NBA landscape. The season just started. We'll talk a little bit about that. And we also want to get into some of what we started last episode with some of the
Yeah.
best centers of all time here.
Top 3 to be exact.
Yep. So we're going to kick it off. We'll start with the current landscape of the NBA. So JP, tell me this. What do you think, what's been the biggest surprise for you this year so far in the NBA with the teams that have gotten started here?
I I think with all the additions of some younger teams and how they managed to get how they managed to get how the chemistry managed to develop with that.
Hmm.
I think that impressed me. I like the I like how certain teams like the Rockets and Pistons are building their core, trying to get back to their glory days.
Hmm.
Although for the Pistons, those days are long gone.
Not that long ago, man. You know, make me feel old. It's not that long ago. 2004. What was that? I guess it is almost 20 years ago now. So,
That was over a decade ago.
yeah, a little bit before you were born, even. So, yeah, a little bit of time ago.
And anyway, I think I I really look forward to this year seeing some younger guys like Anthony Edwards, John Morant, Zion. I, I can't wait to see. I expect to make a bit of a leap this year, and I'm very excited to see that.
Yeah, good call on that. Some of the interesting things for this year. There's a lot of those younger players that are coming in, and it'll be interesting to see if they take that next step this year. Um, with Zion, do you think? I mean, how has he looked this year so far? When he's been healthy, how's that? How's he look to you?
Well, as the Pelicans as a whole look great. They got Zion, like I said, Brandon Ingram, CJ. I think they'll be one of the sleeper teams to win it all this year. And I don't think they're getting out of the West with no means, but they look like a. But so far, they look like a great team.
Okay. Yeah, I know we got hurt this week, but they're saying he should be back sometime, like on Sunday, most likely. So we'll see what happens with Zion, because I mean, this is really all about him when it comes to the Pelicans and what they're going to be able to do.
Yeah, for real.
So let's talk. You talk about the West. Let's talk about the West a little bit. We had the Warriors win the chip last year. And the Suns look great. Yeah, I see you representing. You got your Warriors shirt on there. We know that the Suns are looking great. The Clippers, we talked a little bit about them in the last episode, and they got returning players as well. So, who do you think? Who's the top four teams coming out the West this year?
For stars, I want to say I don't think the Suns will be as good as they were last year
Okay.
because because for because the Mavericks in last year's playoffs exposed their defense. They already know how to attack a 37-year-old Chris Paul. And, and
Again,
then
you're making me
and,
feel old.
and, and with Devin Booker, if he's not scoring, what you can't do much else. So elite defensive teams can keep Denver from scoring, and they know how to, and offenses know how to attack Chris Paul, then what are the Suns going to do?
Good point. Good point. It's a long season too, so it'll be interesting to see how they hold up. I mean, last year they led the NBA in the regular season in wins, didn't they?
Yeah, 64 wins, a franchise record.
You with the stats. You with the stats. So yeah. So you think they're not going to be as good? So what about who? So again, who's your top four coming out the West
My
then?
top four: Warriors, uh, champions last year. I think the Grizzlies will be really good.
Hmm.
Mavs and the Clippers.
You mentioned the Grizzlies, man. The John Morant has started this season just picking up right where he left off after the playoffs. I mean, he's been looking incredible so far this year. I think we talked about last week. Did we talk a little bit about in the MVP race? Yeah, we did. Um, and I don't think either one of us had Ja in the top. We were more so saying he's in that next tier. But Ja, he might
Not
be
quite MVP. Not quite MVP yet.
not quite. I'm
Like
telling
a
you,
like a this much below in terms of MVP.
if he keeps up how he's doing now, depending on the rest of the league. I mean, we talked about Luka and Giannis and Embiid, and
Yeah.
we talked about those guys and Joker. But yeah, Ja could be right there, man.
Yeah, he sure has a shot. You can't count him out yet.
Yeah. So you said the Warriors, the Grizzlies, you said the Mavs, and what was the fourth team you mentioned?
The Clippers.
The Clippers. Okay. All right. So that's your four. All right. That's a good four to pick coming out the West. The Nuggets could be right there in that mix to me. And I still think Portland could be in that mix. It's
Not
possible.
Port.
Not Portland. I think they
No.
could be in there. I don't know. I'm thinking about my top four. Um, the Lakers. What about the
Yep.
Lakers? You're not feeling the Lakers this year.
Speaking of making you feel old,
Well, they just won a chip 2 years ago. So
that was 2 years ago. That's not 2022.
but 0-4 start for the Lakers, for LeBron. 0-4 start. That is crazy. I mean, do you think they're going to figure it out? Are they going to get it turned around? What do you think?
Honestly, what did you expect? I didn't think they'd be that much better from last year, aside from the injuries.
Good point. I mean, I thought with Anthony Davis being healthy, I thought that would help them out this year. But and the new coach, I like Darvin Ham as a coach as well. But it just that doesn't seem to be working.
So, so what do you think the Lakers have to do in order to get them back to championship contenders?
Championship contenders,
Well,
championships.
well, well,
Oh,
at least be a playoff team, or at
okay.
least a finals team or something.
I think they could get to the playoffs if they figure out the right role for Russ and he accepts that role. But for them to be a championship caliber team, I don't think it's going to happen at all. I think they have to rebuild. They need to kind of build from the ground up. Um, Palinka, their GM, might need to go. As far as some of the moves that he's made that hasn't turned out right. Um, Again, I like Darvin Ham as their coach. I think I think they need to give him a shot. But yeah, I can't see them in their current build getting up to championship type of level um, unless some major things change or unless they get lucky. Maybe they trade Russ, end up getting a couple of shooters that can come in and space the floor out with LeBron and AD gets really healthy and starts to dominate. That's the only way I could see them getting to that type of level.
Yeah, their two biggest weaknesses or flaws are their three-point shooting and defense. When they won
Right.
a when they won a championship, they had the third best defense. When in 2021, they had the best defense. but in 2022 it became mediocre.
Hmm.
So, as as well as that, like LeBron said, they don't have many great shooters, so in today's NBA, you need to be able to stretch the floor, otherwise you're going to fall behind.
Yeah. And honestly, Bron always has had to play with some shooters. I mean, the way that he dominates the ball, he needs to have those shooters he can kick it to that can hit those spot threes, get open again, space out the floor in a little bit there. So yeah, and I would have thought that would have been Russ, but he has not found his shot at all. So I don't know. So we talked a bit about the West. Who do you think's coming out the East?
The Bucks and Celtics, the Sixers, and I know people are going to give me some flack for this, but the Miami Heat.
The Heat, of course, you the Heat fan, the Jimmy Butler fan. You're gonna put them in there. Okay. So my top three would be almost the same as yours. I think the Bucks, the Celtics, and the Sixers will be right there. But I put the Nets in that mix up at the top four coming out the East. I think the Nets will get back in there. Again, we talked about it a bit last week. I think KD has some things to prove. And I think that they'll be right in that mix in the top four out the East.
I think another team that not many people are giving much credit to are the Cavs.
Oh yeah.
Last year they were on top. They're on top of the East, but because of injuries, they dropped off. So I think
Hmm.
it's but the problem with the Cavs is that the East is so competitive, and it's going to be tough for them to get out of there and make it to the
Facts. Yeah.
finals.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, they're ways away from the finals. But yeah, it's great for that team, that young team to be in that spot now. So no,
I
good points.
I feel like they're a few years away from being championship contenders, not but not yet.
I'm with you on that. Okay. So good talk about that. That brings us to the end of this topic. We're going to get into our next topic, but that's going to come up after a break from our sponsor, a message from
Oh
our
no.
sponsor. So the sponsor of this show happens to be my wife's business, your mom's business, which is Sweet Love,
Yeah.
Sweet Treats. Thank you to
Yeah.
them for sponsoring this episode. You can check them out on Instagram, also on Facebook. If you're interested in some chocolate-covered strawberries or other types of treats, definitely check out Sweet Love, Sweet Treats. All right. So with that,
Yeah,
let's
my
get
mom
it.
would love that.
That's right. That's right. So let's get into our second topic here. This is one that we previewed
Anyway,
last time, and this was you go ahead and kick this one off. This topic.
my top three centers. So
Top three centers.
Kar- my we all know Kareem and Shaq are there, but I have a bit of a hot take.
Okay.
Hakeem Olajuwon is the top three center of all time. Number three.
Okay. So you got Kareem number one, Shaq number two, and you go on with Hakeem number three.
Yes.
Okay. Um, so I think with centers, I think about it in tiers. And I think Cap is absolutely number one. So Kareem is number
Yes.
one.
Without
I
a
think
doubt.
that's without question. Honestly, if you're talking about best players of all time, to
He,
me, best players of all time is Jordan, Bron, Kareem. Those three, to me.
those three are the only three players in NBA history who have a legit argument for being the GOAT to me.
Agreed. So those three I put right up in there. And not necessarily in that order. I mean, you could
You
say
could,
Kareem might be number one. I mean,
yeah,
he's
they're all
people don't talk about him
interchangeable.
like that. Yeah, they don't talk about Kareem as much as
Kareem has,
Jordan, but
he,
yeah,
he probably has the best resume in NBA history.
yeah. I know you know the stats. What's some of the stats on Kareem that make him so strong?
So who are we talking about? We're talking about a six-time champion, six-time MVP, two-time Finals MVP, led a mediocre Bucks team to the championship with an with his second best player being the aging Oscar Robertson, a guy who had averaged over 30 points and 10 rebounds for several years.
Hmm.
and a guy who changed the center position forever.
Absolutely. Absolutely changed the game. Yep. Absolutely. See, folks, Justin knows these facts. JP knows these facts off the top of his head. He just knows all of this. Now, looking at anything, how do you learn all the facts and then memorize them? How do you do that?
Well, one of the reasons is what inspired me to do this podcast in the first place. Seeing all these guys talk about the game and being able to learn from it.
Hmm.
I wanted to follow that path and state these facts like they did.
Awesome. Well, you did a good job, not just researching the facts, but also memorize them. So yeah, back to the topic. So yeah, Kareem. When we talk about centers, yes, Kareem is number one. So that's my number one tier. If I go my second tier, that's where it gets to be more of a discussion, because to
Yep.
me, I got Shaq and Wilt as in that second tier, and I don't really know who's better. It's hard for me to say who's better because Wilt played in an era when he didn't have competition like Shaq had in the 90s. So it's hard for me to say, if you look at the stats, obviously Wilt's stats are incredible. All of his
But
stats are incredible.
it's that, like you said, he played in the 60s, so it's no offense to Will, he's an all-time great, but his numbers are slightly inflated, though.
Yeah, I think you got to put that into the argument. I'll also say um, it's hard for me to compare them because I wasn't alive when Wilt was in his prime and playing and being able to watch all of it. I mean, I've seen video, but it's different I remember when Shaq came into the league and I remember how he just came in and just dominated. And Kareem, I remember as a kid, I used to love watching the Lakers and Celtics in the 80s, even before I got into being a full Pistons fan. I remember watching them and Kareem would dominate. Um, but I never really got to see a lot of Wilt to know. But again, you can't deny some of the stats that he has, even though the comp was different. So it's hard for me to compare the two, but I would put them both in my number two tier as centers. And then for me, I have a third tier, which would be where you have Bill Russell. That's where I would put Akeem in that third tier. And that's where you can start to get into some of the other guys. Uh,
Moses Malone, David
Moses
Robinson.
Malone, exactly, David
I mean,
Robinson.
I'm, I'm sure I'm sure everyone knows who the top five centers are: Kareem, Shaq, Bill Russell, Akeem, and Will. But it's all about changing them around. Like
Right. It's all about the order.
two through
Yeah.
one is unanimous, but 2 through 5 is interchangeable anyway.
Yeah. At least for you and me, we got Kareem undisputed number one. You got Shaq number two, and then for three you had Akeem, right?
Yep.
So for me, I'm gonna go Kareem number one, Cap undisputed. Number two, I know we just talked about this, but I'm gonna go Wilt. I'm gonna go Wilt Chamberlain number two, and then I'm gonna go with Shaq number three. That's that's my top three. And then after that, you got Bill Russell and Akeem. Probably for me, I'll probably put Russell then Akeem. Again, hard to compare different eras. Uh, Akeem might be the most skilled center of all time.
That's what I
Uh,
believe.
might be the most skilled defensively and offensively.
Yeah.
Um,
Last time I already talked about his defense, but I didn't even mention his offense.
last time we were just talking about the defensive side and all of that. But yeah, JP, I think you're right about that top five being pretty much undisputed. I mean, you could argue for some guys like David Robinson or Patrick Ewing or,
Moses Malone.
yeah, Moses Malone, Nate Thurman. I mean, there's a lot of guys you could make arguments for, uh,
I even
but
throw Ben Wallace in the top 10.
you put him in the top 10.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
That's
don't
what
know if you could slide him in there.
I want to so badly.
Okay, if we're talking defensive
Let's
players,
let's save it for another time.
okay, we'll save it for another time about rankings and putting people outside. But I think so. So we got our top three then. And you and I agree on the top on two of those three, but then you got Hakeem, I got Wilt in there. Yeah, I'm taking Wilt over Hakeem. Sorry, Dream. Sorry, Dream. But all right, good discussion here for this episode. We'll see how the NBA season goes coming up the next week or so and have some topics for the next episode. Anything else you want to say before we sign off? Marshmallow, peace. Go Blue. We'll see y'all next time.
Peace.